Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to my new YouTube channel, Patrick Goes Wild. You're tuned in to Wild and Live, and it's Monday. It's I guess it's week 2 of quarantine, or is it week 3? I've lost count. I hope everybody's doing well. If you are returning to the channel, thanks again for joining us. If you're new to this channel and to this online series, I'd like you to first of all look down there. There's a nice red subscription button. Click there, subscribe, and have a look through the videos that are coming up this week. We've got some awesome guests. Today, we are going to be talking to wildlife filmmaker Lucy Wells. Lucy, you are with us. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you very much. Trying not to stay too insane.
I know, right? It's a bit of an odd situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, it really is. And for people like us, I think that enjoy the outdoors, it's particularly tricky.
Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about 2 animals that I think people would be really excited to hear about. Cassowaries and whale sharks. So here's a question for you, a good one to get us started. Whale sharks, are they big whales or big sharks?
It's a very good question, and it's one I get asked actually quite a lot. They are really, really big sharks. They're actually the biggest fish in the sea. Sharks are fish, yes. So they're not whales, they are sharks.
And how can you tell that they are sharks and not whales?
Well, one of the good reasons is if you look at their tail fin. A shark will be up and down like that, and so they'll swim from side to side like that. A whale will be across like that, more horizontal, and it'll go up and down. It's an easy way to spot them.
Lucy, you're giving us, I'm sure, a really good demonstration of the difference between the tail fin of a shark, a fish, and a whale. Unfortunately, you have frozen in the.
Oh, no. Wow.
And but I mean, you look great. You've got a nice smile on, so I mean, you've done a pretty good job considering.
A shark has a tail that's up and down. It's more vertical.
Up and down that way.
And it swims from side to side, whereas a whale has a fin that is horizontal, and it swims from pushing it up and down. So a whale shark has a tail that goes up and down, so we know it's a shark.
Perfect. A whale shark goes side to side.
Well,
they're massive creatures. They are the biggest fish in the world.
Yeah.
They've also got a really big mouth. About what the size? I reckon width-wise, it's about 5 feet wide. So that's about the width of a small car.
Yeah.
And their mouths are lined with thousands of teeth. So weren't you scared filming them? I know you got into the water with them.
I did.
Surely you were scared of getting into the water with one of the biggest fish in the world that has thousands of teeth and a massive mouth.
You would think so. Most people are pretty scared of sharks, but whale sharks don't actually eat people. They eat tiny little fish. In fact, their esophagus, so the tube that connects your mouth to the tummy, is only about the size of a 10-pence piece, I suppose. So I wouldn't fit
really?
down. Yeah. So I may be able to get
That's
into
tiny.
their mouth. Yeah. I may be able to get into their mouth, but I certainly wouldn't be swallowed. I'd be fine.
Lucy, I like that fact that the esophagus, the food tube of a whale shark, is no bigger than a 10-pence piece. I didn't know that fact, and I like it. That's great. So if that's the case, if they can't eat humans or a bigger prey, what do they eat?
So they like to eat lots and lots of very little fish. So anything that's, well, small enough to go down that esophagus, that food tube. So kind of anything like silversides or whitings or just little fish that live in the sea.
I suppose they also feed on plankton as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll feed on plankton. Yeah.
So these massive fish, they're being sustained by. It's interesting though, because you've got the biggest fish in the world that's being sustained by some of the smallest marine life on the planet.
Yeah.
And as filter feeders, I suppose they move very slowly. I know that for sure. What, about 5 kilometers an hour, swimming looking for plankton blooms, or like you said, for small fish. And that makes them really efficient when they're swimming, and it means they don't take up as much energy. But being filter feeders, I wondered, it means that they can't be as selective, or can they? Can they choose what goes into their mouth when they're filter feeding?
No, absolutely not. No, they will see, as you say, either a swarm of fish or a plankton bloom, and they'll just open up their mouth, and anything that's small enough will be swallowed.
We'll go in. I'm gonna, give me a second, Lucy, because I realise my computer's not plugged in. So this is gonna die if I don't plug the charger in. Give me a second. Boom! There we go. Full power. Nice. So they can't select the food that they're eating. Does that mean that they're at risk of, when we think about the amount of pollution that's going into the oceans, so much plastics and microplastics, are they at risk of ingesting those plastics?
Yeah, huge amount. They really, really are susceptible to it. I mean, most fish and wildlife in the sea are, but you're right, the whale sharks, because it's swallowing a hell of a lot of food every day, and a lot of it, there's a very good chance that it will be plastic.
Right. Is there anything that we can do to kind of prevent this? What can we do at home to try and help the whale shark?
Try and reduce your use of plastic, and try, if you do have plastic, reuse it. So if you happen to have a plastic bag, for instance, use it again and again. Don't just throw it away.
So reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, back to whale sharks. It's thought that whale sharks, only 10% of them make it to adulthood.
Yep.
But once they do make it to adulthood, they seem to have pretty long lifespans. How old? What's the oldest whale shark ever recorded?
I think it's around 150 years old. So yeah, they do have really long lifespans. Yeah. The tricky thing with whale sharks is they are generally really elusive. They live by themselves usually, and they live quite deep in the sea. So we actually don't know very much about them. But it is thought that, yeah, they can live up to about 150 years old. So pretty long.
That is genuinely incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't realise. I knew they could live up to about 70 years old, which is, that's a pretty good human lifespan. But 150, that's more than twice, the age of 70. Like, can you imagine what it would be like to live for 150 years?
No, I wouldn't want to either.
One of the things that I really like about whale sharks, Lucy, is the fact that they have such a beautiful and very distinctive patterning on their bodies. It almost looks like a giant checkers board or a giant chessboard. Do you know why they have this coloration and this pattern on the upper side of their body?
Do you know what? As a slight aside to this, you are right. They are so beautiful. I filmed them in Indonesia, in West Papua, and where we were, they actually call them the starry shark because of the speckles on their back. Yeah, they are so beautiful. You're right. No one really knows why they are speckled. It could be good camouflage. Don't know. What we do know is that they're all unique. It's a bit like a fingerprint. So every single shark will have a very different pattern on them. And so scientists use that to be able to identify them in the wild.
Cool. So that's like their fingerprint.
Yeah, exactly.
A whale shark fingerprint. Brilliant. Nice. I'm just going to have a little check-in to see if we have any. Okay, we do have a couple of questions. We will get to those in just a second, because I want to know why you were filming these whale sharks, and can you tell us a little bit about your experience filming them in West Papua?
Yeah, so I was filming them for a series that was on last year called 7 Worlds, 1 Planet, and we were filming a lovely story of the fishermen in this area, in this particular bay, that believes the whale sharks bring them good luck, so they feed them. So you hear a lot about sharks being killed in the wild for their fins, whereas in this area, they absolutely do not. They protect them and subsequently protect the whole kind of ecosystem environment they live in, which is lovely. My experience, well, I'd never seen a whale shark before, so I was very excited, as you can imagine.
What was it like when you first saw your first whale shark?
Oh my goodness, Patrick! I'm not ashamed to say
Speechless. and you didn't only get to see one whale shark. We were talking earlier, and you said you saw a group of 10.
Yeah. So in this particular area, I said earlier they usually live by themselves. In this area, because the fishermen feed them, they turn up in many more numbers. So we were filming at this fishing platform where one day 10 turned up. We think there could have been more.
Yeah.
It was breathtaking. These animals are longer than a double-decker bus. And so to see one is boggling, hard to kind of get to grips with how big they are. To see 10, it was astonishing. They are such beautiful animals, and they're so gentle and graceful. To see that many, and I was lucky that I swam with 10 of them. They are such amazing animals.
I mean, you sound kind of semi-speechless, and it sounds like your breath is being taken away at just thinking back to it. I had the chance to swim with whale sharks in Ningaloo Reef in Australia, and yeah, massive creatures. And to see one it's hard for your mind to kind of comprehend what you're seeing. Because you see the front, you're like, wow, this massive mouth. Then you see it approaching. Then you see the side, like, oh, it is quite big. Then it goes past, and then it's still going past, and it's still going past. And then you see and then you see this massive, really tall. The tail fin is really, really tall. Yeah, just an amazing creature. It sounds like you had a great time. I'm going to switch over to some questions. We've got a really good one here from Mateo Jackson Kavanagh. Hey Mateo, how you doing? If only 10% make it to adulthood, what kills the other 90%?
Well, it's a really good question, Mateo. Again, it's kind of vague. People don't really know. Most animals, quite a small proportion, will actually end up at adulthood naturally anyway. But there will be a real big case of them being fished. I think I mentioned earlier, they are fished for their fins. So quite a lot of them are killed by us. We will hunt them. Also, as Patrick was mentioning earlier with the plastics, they will be eating a lot of plastics, which could cause them some damage too. We don't really know, I'm afraid, to be vague.
I suppose they when they're first born, they're still quite big. Well, for a baby whale shark, about a foot in length. They develop inside their mothers, and their mothers give birth to live young.
Yeah.
But I suppose before they become a fully grown adult at about almost 20 meters, being a foot, you're quite the perfect size for any other predator.
Absolutely, you're vulnerable for a snack, for something else to eat you. Yeah, no, indeed.
Okay, let's move on to our next creature that we're going to be talking about. Another animal that you filmed for Seven Worlds. You were filming cassowaries, southern cassowaries for Attenborough's Seven Worlds. For anyone that has never seen a cassowary, how would you describe them?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and this is a bit of a cliche, is that they're dinosaurs. They're about 6 foot tall. So they're about the size of a tall man. They're a cross between kind of like an ostrich, I suppose, and a dinosaur. So they've got this bright coloured neck, and
it's like blue, isn't it?
Face, absolutely. And then they've got this big dome on their head, which is called a casque, which only recently they've worked out what it's for. But so they just look prehistoric, and then they've got these big feet, like dinner plate size feet. One of the toes has a huge long claw. I mean, a claw about probably as long as your hand. So like a pretty dangerous looking animal. And they've got big beady eyes and huge long eyelashes. And they just appear silently out of a rainforest where they live. They're an amazing animal. They look, it's well worth having a Google. They're an astonishing looking thing.
So it sounds like you've described a cross between an ostrich, an emu, and a velociraptor.
Yes.
You know, I was going to ask you, and I thought it was a bit of a silly question, you know, to ask, are they dinosaurs? Obviously, they're not. No. But when we look at their evolutionary history, when I'm trying to figure out the right way to ask this question. How old are emus? Emus, cassowaries.
We got there in the end.
I'm losing the plot here.
Cassos have been around for around 60 million years. That's 60 million years. So some of you who like dinosaurs out there, you'll know that there were some dinosaurs around the time when cassowaries first started appearing. So they kind of are dinosaurs in a way, but they also live in the world's oldest forest. This forest is 180 million years old.
Wow. So you've got this bird that's from 60 million years old, and it lives in an even older forest. What's the name of the forest?
Yeah. So it is like going back in time, going into this forest, and then seeing a cassowary appear. You could almost imagine that you're in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, it must have been amazing filming these prehistoric-looking birds. Could you share with us what was the name of the forest that you were filming in?
So it's called the Daintree Rainforest, which is up in the northeast of Australia, right at the top. And it's the most beautiful rainforest you'll ever see. It's unlike anywhere else I've ever been. It's amazing.
And you were there to film a very particular type of behavior, because cassowaries do something which I find quite intriguing. It kind of shows that the softer side of their personalities, even though they're known as one of the most ferocious birds on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, if you Google cassowary, you immediately come up with most deadliest bird. Dangerous. But you're right, Patrick. They have got a sort of softer side, and unusually for birds, it's the males that look after the babies. So a female will mate with a male, and then she'll leave him completely alone. So he will sit on the eggs for a couple of months. He'll then look after the babies, which are only probably the span of your hand high. So he'll look after the babies for about a year until they're old enough to be able to look after themselves. So we went to film a very special daddy. His name was Crinkle Cut, and his chicks, and show that softer side, as you say, and how amazing they are at being a dad.
Cassowaries are also known as a keystone species for the habitats that they live in. Yeah. Can you explain to us what it means to be a keystone species, and then how that then affects their habitat?
Yeah, of course. A keystone species is a very important species. It means that in an environment, in a habitat, that species is essential to the survival of that habitat. So if you took that species out of that habitat wouldn't survive. Now, the cassowary is a keystone species of the Daintree rainforest. So it eats lots of fruit. A lot of the fruit it eats, nothing else eats. So it is responsible for allowing plants to survive in the Daintree rainforest, and subsequently a number of animals that depend on those plants to survive.
Interesting.
So if you took away
Right,
the
okay.
tree, the Daintree rainforest wouldn't survive.
Okay, so it's because those cassowaries feed on particular fruit, and then they can disperse those seeds around the forest.
Exactly.
And being one of the only animals that can do that for those particular trees and plants, if you take those cassowaries away, then that habitat and that ecosystem starts to kind of crumble in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Or becomes destabilized.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so they're really important. They despite their ferocious look and their velociraptor claw, which is almost about 6 inches, I think it's actually between 4 and 6 inches long, they are quite gentle. They're very caring. The males look after the young.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of the males cutting up little pieces of fruit for the young as well.
Yeah, no, it was so special to see how gentle Crinklecut was with his chicks. He would not only pick fruit for them, but as you say, he would break apart fruit because the chicks were so tiny, the fruit, they couldn't get into the fruit themselves. So Crinklecut would break open the fruit and feed it to the chick. Oh,
I love that name, Crinklecut.
I know.
What a name.
I know. He's called Crinklecut because his cask, that dome on top of his head, was all wobbly, a bit like a crinkle cut crisp.
Right, I see. Lucy, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Let's have a little look. What is that? 2 questions before I let you go. What is that cask used for? You said that recently scientists have discovered what it's used for.
Yeah, there was so many wonderful theories, like it was used in battles with other males, or it was used to push through the forest. But what they found is that it's actually used for what's called thermoregulation. So it means that it helps control the temperature of the cassowary. It'll help him cool down or warm up depending on the outside temperature. It's a bit like elephant ears. They do exactly the same thing.
That's a very good comparison. I like that. Last question. Cassowaries are listed as being of least concern on the IUCN Red List.
Yeah.
However, the Australian population is under threat. What kind of threats do the Australian population face?
Yeah, the Australian population, they think there's only about 4,000 left. So they really are very rare. So it's a real privilege if you get to see one in the wild. There's a lot of reasons they're threatened. Their rainforest is being chopped down is a big one. Another big one is that there are feral pigs in the Daintree rainforest. So many years ago, some farmers brought some pigs to Australia and then let them loose. And they've now bred and they've taken over the rainforest. Now, feral pigs will, when they eat, they'll snuffle in the ground and dig up all of the soil to find food. What that means is if it rains, and it's a rainforest, so it rains quite a lot, the soil will then wash away, and often the roots of the trees won't be able to hold them up, so trees will fall down. Not only that, but the pigs will eat the food that the cassowaries eat, and they may even eat a cassowary chick. They grow quite big, so they can be a threat to the chicks as well. So, yeah, the cassowaries are really struggling in the wild, and we really need to do something quick to save them, because, as I said before, if we don't save them, their forest is in danger too.
Lucy, thank you so much for joining us today. We are now at 25 minutes, so I think it's time to wrap up. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And we hope that you stay safe and that you stay sane.
Yeah, and everyone out there, same to you all. It's lovely speaking to you, Patrick.
Awesome. Lucy, thanks again, and I'll chat to you a bit later.
All right, take care. Bye.
Nice one. Awesome. Take care, Lucy. That was Lucy Wells. She is a wildlife filmmaker. She is awesome. We are going to bring this stream to an end. Let's see if we have any other questions. No. let's see, a couple of quick fire facts for you guys. Cassowaries. There are 3 species of cassowary: the dwarf cassowary, the northern cassowary, and the southern cassowary, the one that Lucy was filming, which is the biggest of the 3. It's also the second largest bird on the planet, second heaviest bird, and can weigh up to 75 kilograms. They can run up to speeds of 30 miles an hour. Let's have a look. What else have we got here? Let's see. Here's a good one. The cassowary can make the deepest sound of any bird, and that's to enable them to keep in touch and to communicate. If you think about where they live in forested areas, they need to be able to keep in touch, which is really important for the males when it's trying to keep in touch with the chicks. And the reason why it's developed this ability to create really low sound is because high pitch frequencies can't penetrate dense jungle, whereas low frequency sounds can travel great distances, which is why the cassowary has developed the lowest call of any bird. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Wild and Live. Thank you for tuning in. On Wednesday, we're going to be chatting to a real life action man, Aldo Kane, and we're going to be talking about what it's like to walk inside a volcano. Yes, inside a volcano. That's Aldo Kane. He's going to be joining us on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Remember, if you still haven't signed up, please click the subscribe button below, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at 11 a.m. I will see you then.